And with that, I would say enjoy the session, and I would love to hand it over to Bernhard. Bernhard Kerres, our moderator for today.
Hello and welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure having you. And a very warm welcome to Kevin Roberts. He's actually sitting in Arizona. I'm here in Vienna. And as some people might know, I love espresso. And Kevin wrote a book called 64 Shots. And so my first question in the morning is, did you have your shot of espresso? Just learning that he's off espresso now. But it is a very cool book because it has very condensed wisdom on leadership. And interestingly enough, he has a lot of quotes of Peter Drucker in there. I think, Kevin, he's actually the most quoted one in there. I met Kevin a couple of years ago through his other book, or one of his other books, called Lovemarks, which came out in 2005. And Lovemarks is a book beyond brands. And I think Kevin had a bit of a tough time with that book at that time, because everybody spoke about brand equity and how you can put brands into financial statements and all that. And there came Kevin and said, forget all that. It is about love. And he spoke about love in business. I love the concept really so much that I actually started teaching it to especially musicians. And I'm very happy that some of them are here. And Kevin, you have really great musicians here. But Kevin, what you do not know is that you might actually recognize that, but it is in Japanese. And that's from the Japanese translation of my book, where I quoted you on that. In his last book of 64 Shots, Kevin, you spoke about the VUCA world, and we have heard so much about it. You even spoke about the Supervuca world. Now, where are we now?
Good morning, everyone. We're at halftime. We're at halftime. Okay, this thing started March 15. It's now probably the end of October, and we're going to go for another 6 months. You know, the world probably, optimistically, will begin to reopen in Q2 of next year. I'm confident. I do some work with Oxford University and so on in innovation. I believe that, you know, the progress being made on the vaccine front is solid, and optimistically, we're going to see first responders, first liners getting some experience this year. We're going to see that expanding into the right areas early next year. All being well, the world should reopen. What world that will look like, you all know as well as I do, it's going to be a real challenging second half. We're going in at halftime. We're bruised. We're battered. We're hurting. We're fatigued. It's just like a game of rugby, a game of soccer, a game of netball, a game of hockey. Okay. It's just like a musical performance. It's the intermission now. Okay. And we're going in there feeling it. But at the same time, we've had some successes. We have survived. We have survived. We are starting to revive in some areas, and even some industries are thriving, okay? So we're going back, we sit down, this will show my age, we have our slice of lemon or a slice of orange, or for you new age people, you have your Gatorade or whatever. We have the team talk from the coach, you know, in The Last Dance or in All or Nothing from Amazon. And then we reflect and we go again, because go again we got to do. And we got to go again in a world where we have a health crisis. We have massive political uncertainty here in the US, where we have, you know, a range of quite elderly candidates vying for power. We have an increasing global mental health problem. Probably 4 out of 10 Americans and a lot of Europeans are somewhere along the anxiety to depression curve. We have these astonishing social issues. I grew up in the 60s and I thought we were wrestling with them then. Well, they've come back and they're the same ones and they're pretty brutal. And we've got obviously the worst recession I'll have seen, the unemployment that we'll have seen. So we have a world in the second half. People talk about the new normal, and I don't think it exists. We have a new world, which will be the new abnormal. And we've got to find a new way forward for life as well as work. It's not just about, do I work in the office? Do I work from home? It's about, instead of going to work, we have to learn how to bring work to us so that we can find joy and happiness and learn from this crisis. So I see a challenge for focus, for commitment, for discipline. I think the power of three, we've got to become children again, and every morning repeat our ABCs in front of the mirror, our ambition, belief, courage. So I think it's going to be, if you're a creative person like you, it's going to be a wonderful period, because it's going to be a period of imagination, innovation, invention, a period where we will have to exercise our five senses, not just our brains and our bodies, but we have to exercise our hearing, our listening, our looking, and a chance to really take this as a wake-up call and to, well, follow Peter Drucker's advice, right? We've got to do the right things, you know, and we've got to do things right. We got to do those two things.
Before I come back to the halftime and the bruises we have, and I rather go then into the future you just described of creativity and so on, and the opportunities any crisis presents to us. I just want to come back to your book very quickly, which was written, the 64 Shots was written in 2016. And on the VUCA world, you already said one of the issues coming up might be viral attacks. Now, yes, we have that now. Why didn't anybody see that coming?
Yeah, well, I was in a big world of business, I don't know, some big forum in Warsaw that was being run by A.T. Kearney, and I was asked to talk about the three risks that I saw in 2016 globally. And there was, I think, a couple of thousand people there, leaders and politicians and so on. And the list the three that I picked were, there's going to be incredible political and social unrest in the US, which will really slow down, you know, the American juggernaut. And when America sneezes, the world catches a cold. So that was kind of one thought. The other thought was, we're going to see the rise of China and the impact that will have on human rights, etc., which will be a new challenge. And third, I thought we were very vulnerable to a global pandemic. We'd seen AIDS, we'd seen SARS, we'd begin to see something of Ebola. I wasn't sure whether the global pandemic would be a force of nature or a weapon of political power, but I felt that the world needed to be ready for it. And during the debate that followed, the focus from the audience was on the geopolitical rather than the viral. And we were not really able to, I think Gates talked about it subsequently. I think there have been people, but I didn't see big pharma. I didn't see governments. It was sort of like the way people pay lip service to sustainability and have a couple of conferences, but actually don't change very much. And that was like this, except we didn't even have the global conferences, except in the medical profession, who then were stopped or didn't do anything.
Well, I wanted to ask a different question, but here we are at a global conference dedicated to Peter Drucker. We have heard great talks today, talks about we need to make sure that the compensation is right. We need to have trust and so on. Well, we all are at that conference. In your view, yeah, knowing that people, I'm sorry to say so, didn't listen to you at the conference you just spoke about on the pandemic issue, yeah, what do leaders today really need to listen to? Except, but that's a different question.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the US, where you have these two 78-year-old men, you know, and one of them doesn't listen and the other one doesn't remember what he's listened to, it's not a super sort of productive environment, is it, for active listening? I mean, I find most politicians now, the art of listening, the science of listening are both dead issues. What they've learned is the art of waiting to speak. And then that's how they seem to spend their time, yeah? So I think the new leaders going forward have got to be two things: caring and demanding. And to be caring, you must be an active listener, right? You know, if you go to the marae in New Zealand, the community center of the Maori, they will talk about, you go to an office to do 4 things: to meet, to see, to listen, and then to speak. There are no desks, there are no doors, there are no screens, there are no headphones. You're right. The office is like a living room. It's like the Pima Indian here where I live in Arizona, where you have the talking stick, right? You know, the 16 chiefs the elders come together and sit in a semicircle, a circle, and he who has the talking stick talks, and the other 15 listen. Man, active listening is going to be core to a successful, caring, and demanding leadership.
By the way, for all our participants, Kevin and I, we do active listening, and we also look forward to your questions. You can put them in the chat, and in a couple of minutes, we'll come to actually a Q&A session. And you're also welcome to do a statement or contradict Kevin or myself anytime. Yeah, that's absolutely fair, and we're actually looking forward to that. Now, you speak about caring and demanding, and my question is, you wrote actually in the 64 shots saying kind of Lovemarks was your more or less business side because you were in marketing and you ran Saatchi and Saatchi for so many years, but leadership is your true passion. So where is the difference between leadership and Lovemarks?
Yeah, you know, I mean, so we're doing a lot of podcasts now. I'm sure everybody is, because how else can we stay connected? How else can we learn? How else can we listen? So we're spending time on screen, obviously working, but at the same time, we're devouring content. And one of the inevitable questions you get asked is, I just did this terrific thing on inspirational leadership last week with a British ex-army guy, Jonathan Bowman Perks, terrific, who taught me about the three hums, which I'm sure you teach, but I have a feeling they might be different, right? But he said the 3 hums were humanity, humor, and I'll leave you to guess the 3rd one, and we'll see how you go. No, because you won't say it because you practice it. So it's humility. Humanity, humility, and humor. And Bernhard, you have all of them, and I know you teach all of them. And on this podcast and on all this leadership stuff, they ask you, well, what book are you reading? And I just say, man, anything by Peter Drucker. You don't need to read anything that's out there now. Just go back to the source and check all that out. So when you listen to what he has to say, then I think I've been obsessed with that since I was 15. And it was all about leadership. The effective executive was all about leadership. First, take control of your own destiny, be responsible for your own happiness, make happy choices. The business, reduce complexity, brutal simplicity, all this kind of stuff. So I'm engrossed in leadership, and that's sort of the demanding part. Creating Lovemarks is a vital thing. But I believe, as you know, that over the next 12 months, the priority for all organizations needs to focus on a trio of survive, revive, thrive. And the core to that is inspiring everyone you touch to be the best they can be. It is about creating other leaders, not followers, all around you. And it is about giving people the ambition, belief, courage to be caring and demanding. And most importantly, and I think as a musician, you'd have a different way of expressing this, but we've got to find ways of delivering more with less, which is great music. If you listen to I've been obsessed with the new Springsteen Letter to You album, and I've watched the video 3 times of the 1.5 hours of him and the E Street Band, first live album since Born in the USA, because I've never seen a band work behind the scenes. I've just listened to great music. So, and he did more with less, more everything with less stuff, but more focus on important rather than urgent. I can't even remember what the question was, so I'm pretty sure that didn't answer it, but I feel, I can feel your humanity encouraging me.
Well, I just want to make one comment, because we mentioned podcast a couple of times, and we did actually make a podcast inspired by Kevin and Lovemarks, and it's coming out over the next 3 days versus via the forum. You find it on any podcasting platforms. It's called Classic On, and you'll meet about 20 great musicians from all around the world. Some are actually in that session here, who really took Kevin's Lovemarks to heart, speak about the Lovemark, and make great music. And I just have, for example, Tanja Huppert, who is a pianist in Germany, and she played, I think, Scarlatti there. And this is really kind of what Kevin is talking about in music terms. It is making more with less. It's a few notes, but it's so brilliantly played, that it really opens your heart and your soul. So it's absolutely amazing. So check it out. Where it's really worthwhile listening to. Well, the question is, with caring and demanding still, Kevin, how do you teach people that? How do you make people caring and demanding? And to be honest, I care more for the caring part. What can we do as leaders, as examples, as speakers, to actually create that caring environment?
The first thing that we're doing is define what we mean by a caring leader and define what we mean by a demanding leader. Because the demanding leader is not the Jack Welch, Harold Janine style of high driving margins, performance, ROI. So we start by defining what, kind of the 6 facets, characteristics of a caring leader are, and a demanding leader. We then just give 7 simple behaviors that caring leaders do and that demanding leaders do. And then we give examples and role play, et cetera, the normal kind of stuff, right? But it all starts with purpose, everything starts with purpose. So, the band, Springsteen's personal, and then it has a personal purpose. And Springsteen talked about his, and he said he's constantly driven from the age of 16 by the need to communicate. That's his purpose in life. He wants to communicate with as many people using music as a great communication vehicle. And he's driven every day at the age of 71 by that. So I think we've got to be purpose-driven, right? We've got to develop a personal purpose on a page. What is our dream? What's our spirit? What are our beliefs? What's our focus? What's our focus? And from there, you know, some companies are inherently instinctively caring. I know you are, right? And some are, you know, less so. So we're able to help them with the kind of culture, the kind of behaviors, the kind of environment that will instill care upwards, downwards, and sideways, because it's a two-way thing, right? Then to that, some companies are inherently more demanding. I worked at Procter & Gamble for 8 years. I worked at PepsiCo for 8 years. They're very demanding companies, okay? And they're very purpose-driven, but sometimes caring is not the instinctive first go-to position on an issue. So we've got to find ways to deliver both, right? And it's not about balance. I hate balance as a term, right? Balance is, to me, involves compromise. I think you've got to look for brilliance, not balance. You've got to be the most caring lover, the most caring spouse, the most caring executive, the most caring leader, the most caring parents, and the most demanding leader, and to do that, you've got to blue ocean yourself and blue ocean your life, and just eliminate all the stuff, particularly what I call BMWs. And a BMW is a bitcher, moaner, and a whiner. And we just got to put those people in the freezer. This is not a time for bitching, moaning, and whining. You got to put them in the freezer. Leaders have got to deliver calm and hope. And yes, I know hope is not a strategy. I never said it was, right? But it is a state of mind. And to that state of mind of hope, you have to add action, right? Action. Caring and demanding leaders, they are calm, they're optimistic, they're hopeful, they share that, they inspire everyone they touch to be the best they can be, which I understand is what Springsteen was doing with the E Street Band. I know it's what you're trying to do with your ensemble of terrific musicians. And that's what we got to do.
Absolutely. Well, it is wonderful time actually to open up to some questions. And as we are not too many in that room, and as this is really also a networking opportunity, I would like actually not to read out the questions to Kevin and myself, but ask the people, call the people up and ask them to actually show your video and ask the question yourself. And I would like to start with Dale Weeks, because he had this wonderful question about the musical context of Les Miserables and some of the lyrics there. Dale, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, I've been one who probably 20-some years ago, I've watched Les Mis many times in person in London and various places across the world. And it just appears to me with a focus on a vision for the globe, this stuff, some of the lyrics there. Will you join in our crusade? Will you be strong and stand with me? Beyond the barricade is a world you long to see. I mean, we're talking about music here. I mean, you go to these venues and then you go out into reality and it's exactly the opposite of that in terms of organizations, what Gary Hamill was talking about this morning of bureaucracy versus emancipation of leaders. I have worked in organizations for 30, 40 years, and most of them are still, maybe it's 5 or 10%, most of them are still over in this bureaucracy. And then you put that in the context of our global political context. To me, this comes in there. So how can we first get a vision for the globe somehow through some of our institutions? It's not the United Nations, but how do we build this sense of, gee, those of us that want to do this stuff can come together and collaborate? Just my reaction, thoughts.
Thank you. Kevin.
Well, we got to get Dale on air, man. That's the answer. You got to run for office, Dale. Get out of Minneapolis, man, and get on the national scene. Go in there with the cast of Les Mis backing you. You don't even have to spend anything on advertising and marketing. Just take the lyrics that they're giving you. Come on.
I can't sing, but it doesn't matter. I mean,
no, they can all sing behind you, right? What you got to do, hell, stand up and fight, man. That's what you're saying, and fight for what's right. And you look at these two guys that we got there. Yeah, it's just shameful. So I used to come to Minneapolis a lot because General Mills was one of my top 4 clients. Yeah. So you live in a pretty good place.
Yeah, I used to work for General Mills way back quite a bit. So forth.
They've had some terrific leaders, Steve Sanger, Ken Powell, these guys. But also there's still a little bit of middle management kicking around the place, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, Twin Cities, a lot of Fortune 500 companies, but many of them are struggling with this bureaucracy stuff. I mean, you can take General Mills, you can take 3M. 3M has got innovation, but then you got Cargill, largest agriculture company but I know many people that have worked there have been really stymied. They're not, so.
Thank you, Dale.
No, I don't want to take up a lot of your time. Go ahead. Thank you.
Very good, though. Very good linking to the Les Mis. Very smart.
Very smart. And I think I like that very much, Dale. Thanks for that input. Yeah. Because when we talk about bureaucracy, music is not bureaucratic. Yeah. Music is creative. It's happening. Yeah. And everything. And if you look actually, I made a joke the other day is you can celebrate a bureaucratic birthday by just saying happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. And that's it. Yeah. And we all would sing it, right? So we can actually kill bureaucracy with music and overcome it a bit. Yeah. And so I don't know, Kevin, but what I would actually suggest to many people out there is adopt a musician, have a house musician, have them come in and play. And I can tell you after a couple of weeks, it will change the bureaucracy in your company immediately.
We lived with that in Saatchi and Saatchi. I couldn't agree with you more. Although I was still waiting for the joke, but I guess you're Austrian, so it's going to be slowly burning there quietly in the background for me to get the joke. I'll figure it out later. But there's no doubt that, for us, when you listen to, one of the greatest moments of my life was when Bob Dylan was awarded the Nobel Prize. That showed a bureaucratic organization doing the right thing for once, because this is the greatest storyteller of my generation. I think he uses every word there is in the English language, and he changes his musical persona every decade. And here he was recognized. So that was the empire fighting back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Adopt a musician. I think that's a great selling line for the next conference, by the way.
We have a question from a musician here, somebody I know, a fantastic Polish pianist. Isabella, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Why does Poland create so many great pianists?
Hello, it is a pleasure to listen to you today. Yes, I have a question. Yes, I am a president of a doctoral student union here at the Academy of Music in Krakow. And we as musicians grow up in a very competitive environment from the beginning of our education. And I would like to ask, how can I inspire people to work together, to cooperate instead of compete against each other?
I think it starts with a shared purpose. So as you come together at the college, at the university, we need to work for something bigger than ourselves. So we need to work for the movement of creativity, for the movement of Polish music, for the movement of global music. So we should all come together as one group, develop a shared purpose, and then we should work together to it. The great demanding leader is someone who picks up a great team. But if you think about what great teams are, I wrote some stuff down here the other day. Great teams are full of talented people who want to work together, And that's what a leader has to do. He has to have a purpose that people buy into because it's greater than them, because we all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves, right? Which is why we originally signed on to the American Dream and why we're now busy signing off, okay? So we want to work for something bigger than ourselves. And then the leader, your biggest challenge is how do you get people genuinely understanding that the finished product is bigger than the individual performance.
I find that fascinating, Kevin. And when I do leadership training, I often bring a string quartet actually into the training for corporates. And one of the first questions they always ask is, and who is the leader? And then the people just look there saying, we don't have a leader. Yeah, it's just us. It's a purpose, like you said. We wanted to make great music. And the other lesson I always learn from them, and I have to remind myself from them, one question which pops up is, what do you do about mistakes? And they say, we don't do anything about mistakes because whoever actually did the mistake knows it anyway. They're professionals. I don't need to tell them saying, hey, you did a mistake there.
Fail fast, learn fast, fix fast, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you pick the right team, you see that in the E Street video, actually. I mean, they fail, and Springsteen fails, or Stevie Van Zandt fails. The drummer never fails, right? I mean, this guy's unbelievable, but in his head, he never fails. It's all you other prima donnas that are failing. But it's the ability to relish failure, to seek it. But the most important part of that equation is to fix it real fast.
Exactly. And when
Not
you're in a
to blame,
performance,
but to fix. Yeah.
Absolutely. When you're in a performance, you need to fix it. There's no other way, because you are in a performance. There's an audience out there, and you have to go along with the riff. That's it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
No way to turn back. I would like to ask Mele to ask you questions about politics.
Hello. Yes, am I audible? Yeah, I mean, we don't really like to talk about politics lately too much, right? Especially if we want to be in a creative mode and positive one. But somehow, yeah, talking about leadership, we can't escape it. So do you see any optimistic way out is my main question.
Yes, I do. I do.
Nearly globally. Should we take it away from the political field in general, or is there a way to reform the field? Or
yes, the answer is New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. That's the answer. We need women to run countries now, not men, because women are more geared to these tough times. They are instinctive. Jacinda's view, first of all, she's 40 years old. That's the right age to run a country. You cannot run a country at 78. You're out of touch, man. You're out of touch, and you're out of energy. You've got to harness yourself to live the best life you can. It's too big a job. So you've got to be 40, Jacinda, tick. She has a young child, tick, okay? Her whole approach to this was single-minded. I will take care of the citizens of my country. And I will worry about all the other distracting noise of the economy, which is all very important, and international, very important. I will worry about that once my children, my citizens are safe. Now, I don't know politically where people sit, but for me, I want to see education. I want to see health. available for all citizens, okay, globally. And I believe that the model is, you're going to see it in Iceland, you're going to see it in some other countries. I think we can, if politics can attract a new breed of leaders, and I don't mean old school political leaders. I don't mean the Hillary Clinton model. I mean the Jacinda Ardern model, irrespective of party, right? I mean, my politics are slightly to the right economically and quite to the left socially. Tony Blair, if you like, in the UK. I don't know. I don't know where people sit nowadays, but it seems to me politics are what we need. I wish the UN was stronger. You know, I was sorry Helen Clark from New Zealand did not become the leader of the United Nations. I think that would have been a good thing. I think our model is to attract younger, purpose-driven leaders, of which Jacinda gives me hope that there are people like that in the US, and there are people like that in the UK, not just people who've been to Eton.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I will take away the kind of discussion about politics, because we could go on about politics too long. And as I am a musician, as not only a coach, but also working such a lot of time with musicians, we have another question by a musician, by a violinist, Anastasia Kozlova, about Lovemarks. And if you want to know more about actually Anastasia, we have special lunchtime breaks tomorrow and on Friday. We present in the lunchtime breaks musical regards, which are 16 short videos and statements about leadership from a lot of musicians around the world. One of them is actually Anastasia, and she has a great video, I can tell you, and she makes great music. But Anastasia, you have a question, please ask it.
Thank you, Bernhard. Now I'm even more nervous.
Yeah, no pressure, no pressure.
Well, I followed together with other musicians, we followed the fantastic course by Bernhard, and it was about how to become your own manager. Because of course, in the world of today, depending on someone who will maybe help you, you know, along with other 1,000 people, it doesn't work. So it's time to become your own leader and just to do it. So besides being a violinist, I also have an international festival, which I run. And I was one of the big issues we had during the course was about Lovemarks. And now the father of the Lovemark is here. Of course, I would love to ask you a question if it's possible. And when I was reading your book and when I was working on the Lovemarks, of course, the first question before the Lovemark is the vision and the mission. Because to make it, of course, you have to know where you stand. And what I discovered when I was working with my festival, that they are actually different visions and missions inside one company. Because of course, you have the festival organization, you have the marketing department, and you have the artistic. And every of these three things has his own vision and their own mission. And my question is it smart to make a Lovemark for every of these steps, or do you have to make it like in general about everything together?
Yeah, they are doomed to fail if they have three separate purposes. The difference is between purpose and vision, okay? Purpose should be one purpose for the organization and only one. And all those three pillars should feed into that purpose, because without the artistic, it cannot possibly be achieved. Without the commercial, it cannot possibly be achieved. And without operations, it cannot possibly be achieved. So we would bring them all together, yeah, and we would find out what common characteristics does everyone share, their attributes. What beliefs do we all share? What are we all working towards at a high level? What is our dream? Not our vision, our inspirational dream. As you know, as Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. And dreams are about reaching for the stars, not counting for them. So what is the festival's dream? Is it to be the most famous, most respected, most innovative music festival in the world? Is it to change the face of music? Is it to change the course of history by introducing music at the right, I don't know what it is, the dream, but we should all work for that. Then within that, each group should have 5 challenges. No vision, vision. That's the purpose. Just 5 challenges, 5 things they should do in 3 years to together drive the purpose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to call for one last question, and I'm sorry that I ask another musician, Miroslava Komik, who is a wonderful another violinist from Ukraine living in LA. And she has an interesting question about leadership, and I think it's a nice kind of way back to leadership before we need to end that session. Miroslava, please.
Hello, and thank you so much, Bernhard. I really enjoyed listening to what you have to say about not be afraid to make mistakes, to get up quickly and fix quickly. So my question was, how do you really know, and should you really gauge whether it's the right time for you to be a leader? As you also mentioned before, there's good leadership, there's bad leadership. And how do you find this balance between not being afraid to make these mistakes and go for it, and at the same time know when you're the one qualified to be a leader? And at the same time, how does that relate to what you mentioned about being demanding and caring as a leader? Does that start with yourself first?
Bunch of things, that very multi-layered question. So that's one hell of a last question, Bernhard, because I think there were 7 questions in there. So this is one smart violinist you got there. I have some real strong views on this, having written a book called Peak Performance in 2000, where I studied the world's great sporting teams. And I've been, as I said, fascinated by Peter Drucker's leadership since 1966. But I believe this idea that leaders are born, not made, is complete gobbledygook. I think it's weak and pathetic. So I don't subscribe to that. I believe every one of us has the room to lead, and in fact, the mandate to lead. You must lead yourself, as you finished your question. You must take control of your own destiny. You must take control of your own happiness. We are the ones we have been waiting for. There is no help from government. There is no help from corporate leadership. There will be, I hope, but we are the ones we have been waiting for. You will be never qualified to lead. There are no qualifications for leadership. Okay? You must make the big decisions with your heart, the little decisions with your head. 90% of the world do it the wrong way around. And they look at SWOT, they look at all kinds of strengths, weaknesses, blah, 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 blah. It's all nonsense. That's a management function. Leadership, big decisions with your heart. Follow your heart. When your heart tells you you're ready to lead, you're ready to lead. Okay? And remember, leaders do not create followers. Leaders create other leaders, right? You want a band full of everyone, as Bernhard said, being responsibility for their role in that orchestra or band, which is to make the end product, the sound, irresistible. So the fact that you're thinking about leading, you already are a leader. You've led yourself from the Ukraine to Los Angeles. Many people have not, okay? That's brilliant leadership, okay? You're making a life for yourself in your very nice looking apartment behind you in LA, okay? Chosen to play violin brilliantly. That's super leadership, right? When given command, take charge and do what's right. Norman Schwarzkopf said that. And you've been given command of your own life, your own destiny, your own future. And it looks like you're making, be the change, as Gandhi said, be the change. And be the difference, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. And man, that's clearly what you've done. So good on you.
Well, we are running out of time, and I know that Sophie will kind of kill me in a second if I don't stop us, but exactly being that change. And I don't go out of these meetings without saying, let's be the change. But if you take it upon us to integrate some of what Kevin said, even fight it if you don't like it, have the discussion, but also I think that listening to good music and, making something good for your soul and for your heart, that you can do these decisions like Kevin just said, not only with your brain, but actually with your heart, and your brain says, yes, that's okay. It's a kind of tiny little influence. So don't go out there and study business and finance. And if you're a great finance person out there, brilliant, but make a habit of listening to music and getting to contact with musicians to simply have that heart growing. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I hand over to Sophie.
Thank you so much, both of you. And I'm really sorry that we have to break this session up. But thank you so much for this beautiful closing to day one. To everyone else, I hope to see you again tomorrow morning. Our sessions start at 9 a.m. and our networking lounge is open from 8:30 onwards. For those of you who had tech problems today, please make sure to contact our tech team. I'm putting the contact into the chat again so we can make sure everything is running smoothly. Thank you so much and have a beautiful rest of your evening, and see you again tomorrow. Bye.
Bernhard, thank you, man.
Thank you so much, Kevin, and everyone. And if you can turn on your cameras and make a big wave to each other, that would be awesome, because we like that. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'd like to
And
see
you
your
can also
faces.
to the person on your right and to the person on your left, if you would like, so we can really feel like we're all in the same room together.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Bernhard. Brilliant.
Thank you, Kevin. What a pleasure.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.